Marjorie, they're coming for you! For years, Steve Harvey's wife has mostly stayed out of the spotlight, letting people focus on the fact that she's Steve's third wife whenever her name comes up. But lately, Marjorie Harvey's image as Steve's glamorous and stylish partner has been facing heavy scrutiny. Old stories, long-running rumors, and questions about her past have started making the rounds again, putting her history under a brighter spotlight than ever before. Talk of a controversial past filled with allegations, questionable connections, and dramatic twists has followed Marjorie for years. Before the luxury trips, designer fashion, and high-profile lifestyle, she was reportedly linked to people involved in Memphis's criminal underworld. One of the biggest drug investigations in the city's history has often been mentioned when discussions about her past resurface. Today, she's living a completely different life, far removed from those headlines. But many still wonder how the woman once connected to that world ended up building a life alongside one of television's biggest stars. Straight out of a movie-style storyline, Marjorie Harvey's rise from humble beginnings to a life of wealth and influence has fascinated people for years. When Steve Harvey married Marjorie in 2007, he likely felt he had finally found the woman he wanted to spend his life with. And while Steve may have found his dream partner, many observers believe Marjorie also found an opportunity that changed her life forever, opening the door to a future far different from anything that came before. It's been nearly 20 years since Marjorie said, "I do," to Steve Harvey, and more than 3 decades since her life was tied to her first husband, a man who was widely reported to have been involved in Memphis's drug scene, as well as her second husband, who was allegedly related to him. Long before becoming one of entertainment's most talked about couples, Marjorie and Steve's story had already taken several unexpected turns. According to Steve, Marjorie first caught his attention in 1990 when she arrived late to one of his comedy shows. The moment he saw her, he was reportedly so impressed that he stepped away from the microphone and told the crowd, "I don't know who this is, but I'm gonna marry her." It was a bold statement, and as the years would prove, one he never forgot. But while Steve may have been completely sold from the start, Marjorie wasn't ready to jump in so quickly. At the time, she was still married, making the situation far more complicated than a romantic movie moment. Marjorie later shared that she and Steve spent time together and dated for a period, but eventually the excitement faded and their communication slowed down before stopping altogether. As their connection faded, Steve reportedly explained that financial struggles played a major role in why the relationship didn't continue. While he focused on rebuilding his career and improving his circumstances, Marjorie remained committed to her husband, Jim Townsend, a man whose name would later become connected to some of the most controversial stories surrounding her past. According to claims made by Jim Townsend, Marjorie was far more involved in his life than simply standing on the sidelines. He has suggested that she was aware of much more than many people assumed, though the full extent of her knowledge and involvement has remained a topic of debate for years. While some viewed her as a spouse caught in the middle of a difficult situation, others have pointed to allegations and long-running speculation surrounding that chapter of her life. Jim Townsend was sentenced to life in prison in the late 1990s after a major federal drug case connected him to an attempted large-scale cocaine transaction. Before his conviction, he was reportedly known as a significant figure in Memphis's criminal underworld. During those years, Jim and Marjorie were living a lifestyle that attracted plenty of attention, complete with luxury, money, and the kind of headlines that would later spark endless public curiosity. As their relationship grew, Marjorie and Jim built a family together and welcomed 2 children, Morgan and Jason. Many fans mistakenly believe that all 3 of Marjorie's children came from the same relationship, but her first 2 children are from her marriage to Jim Townsend. That detail often gets overlooked whenever discussions about her past resurface. With Jim facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars, loyalty became a major part of the story. Despite years of investigations and intense scrutiny from federal authorities, Marjorie was never convicted in connection with Jim's criminal case. Even so, questions, allegations, and speculation continued to follow her name, keeping this chapter of her past in the spotlight for years afterward. According to accounts that have circulated over the years, investigators allegedly pressured Jim Townsend during their case and made it clear they were interested in learning more about the people around him, including Marjorie. Jim has maintained that he refused to provide information that could have created legal problems for the mother of his children. Whether viewed as loyalty or something else entirely, he has often presented that decision as a major turning point in the story. For years, Jim remained mostly silent in public. But decades later, that changed when he began speaking more openly about his past relationship with Marjorie and the events surrounding their lives. His comments attracted attention because they came after years of public speculation, family disputes, and lingering questions about what really happened behind the scenes. Suddenly, old stories that many people thought were buried started making headlines again. Before getting into those claims, another key figure enters the picture: Darnell Woods. Over the years, Darnell's name has frequently surfaced in discussions about Marjorie's past and has often been mentioned in reports connected to Lori Harvey's family history. His role in the story has remained the subject of public curiosity for quite some time. Not long after Jim's legal troubles changed the course of his life, Marjorie's personal life also took a different direction. Their marriage eventually ended and she moved on to a new relationship. Darnell Woods was known around Memphis and had a reputation that would later draw even more attention to the already controversial stories surrounding Marjorie's past. Darnell Woods' name has also been connected to one of the most talked about criminal investigations in Memphis history. Reports from that era linked him and several relatives to a group commonly referred to as the Memphis Mob, an organization that gained attention during the height of the crack epidemic in the 1980s. Authorities alleged that members of the group operated through various businesses and social hotspots, creating a network that drew attention from law enforcement for years. Among the locations frequently mentioned in reports was the well-known Martini Room, a nightclub that reportedly attracted athletes, high-profile figures, and people looking to be part of the city's fast-paced nightlife scene. For a time, the group maintained a strong presence, but federal investigations eventually caught up with many of the individuals involved. Prosecutors later brought a range of serious charges related to drug trafficking and conspiracy, bringing an end to an era that had generated headlines across the region. Before those legal troubles fully unfolded, Darnell and Marjorie welcomed a daughter, Lori, in 1997. The pair later married in 2000, but the relationship did not last, and they divorced the following year. Even as Marjorie's life continued to change, people familiar with the story have claimed that communication between her and Jim Townsend remained ongoing because of their shared family ties and history together. According to various accounts, Jim and Marjorie stayed in contact while he was incarcerated, with conversations often centered around family matters and their children. But that chapter would eventually take another dramatic turn when Steve Harvey re-entered the picture. By then, Marjorie was single again, and word reportedly reached Steve that the woman he had never forgotten was available. Even after years apart, Steve appeared convinced that their story wasn't over and that Marjorie was still the person he wanted by his side. Looking back on the relationship he had with Marjorie in the 1990s, Steve Harvey has said that timing played a major role in why things didn't work out the first time around. By the early 2000s, however, his circumstances had changed dramatically. His career was thriving. He had become a television star through The Steve Harvey Show, and he reportedly felt far more prepared for the kind of relationship he had always envisioned with Marjorie. But the timing of their reunion has remained a topic of discussion for years. At the time, Steve was still married to his second wife, Mary Shackelford, which has led critics and commentators to question exactly how the transition from one relationship to another unfolded. As public interest in Steve and Marjorie's love story grew, so did scrutiny surrounding the events that led up to their eventual marriage. Mary Shackelford has publicly stated that she felt shocked by the breakdown of her marriage and claimed she was caught off guard when divorce proceedings began. Over the years, she has made a number of allegations regarding the circumstances surrounding their split, including claims about Steve's relationship with Marjorie during that period. Those claims have attracted significant media attention, although different parties involved have presented differing versions of events. Mary has also alleged that her relationship with her son, Winton, suffered in the years that followed. She claimed that family dynamics changed dramatically and that she became increasingly distant from him. These allegations have been widely discussed online and in the media, adding yet another layer of controversy to an already complicated and highly publicized story. According to stories that have circulated for years, one of the people who encouraged Steve Harvey to reconnect with Marjorie was his longtime bodyguard known as Big Boom. Steve has spoken about being reminded of happier memories from his past, and that encouragement reportedly led him to make the phone call that would eventually change the course of his personal life forever. Before Steve and Marjorie officially reunited, however, various rumors and claims about Marjorie's dating history continued to make the rounds online. Among those rumors were allegations linking her to other men before her relationship with Steve became serious. Many of these claims have never been fully verified, but they have remained a frequent topic of discussion whenever people revisit the timeline of her relationships and rise into the public spotlight. In 2007, Steve and Marjorie took the next step and got married, officially blending their families into one household. Since then, they have become one of entertainment's most recognizable couples, regularly sharing glimpses of their luxury lifestyle, family moments, and public appearances. By all outward appearances, their relationship has remained strong, with Steve often speaking highly of his wife and the impact she has had on his life. Not everyone agrees with that picture, though. Steve's ex-wife, Mary Shackelford, has publicly challenged aspects of the couple's story and has made allegations about how events unfolded. Those claims have fueled years of online debate and speculation, keeping public interest alive long after the original headlines faded. As a result, Marjorie's journey from her early years in Memphis to becoming Mrs. Steve Harvey continues to spark curiosity, controversy, and endless conversation. For those who believe there is still more to Marjorie Harvey's story, some point to the claims made by her first husband, Jim Townsend. After spending more than 2 decades in prison, Townsend was released in 2017 when his sentence was commuted. Following his release, he began speaking publicly about his past and his relationship with Marjorie, offering a version of events that differs sharply from the image many people know today. Jim later released a book titled Snakes in the Garden, a project he reportedly worked on for years, including during his time behind bars. In the book, he shares personal memories, family disputes, and his perspective on key moments from their relationship. His account has generated attention because it provides an inside look at a chapter of Marjorie's life that has long been surrounded by speculation and controversy. One passage focuses on his daughter Morgan and the emotional impact that imprisonment had on their family. In the excerpt, Jim writes, "The sight of Morgan always brought joy to my heart. She was truly the apple of my eye." He goes on to describe painful family conflicts and difficult decisions that he says affected his relationship with both Morgan and Marjorie. Another section details his regret over keeping the truth about his incarceration from his daughter for several years. Jim writes that Morgan believed he was away working rather than serving time in prison and explains how he eventually chose to tell her the truth. These deeply personal stories form a major part of the book and offer readers a glimpse into how he views the events that shaped his family's history. Jim continued sharing deeply personal memories in his book, including his belief that telling Morgan the truth about his imprisonment was the right decision. In one passage, he writes, "Marjorie and her heartless mother thought I had committed an unpardonable sin by setting things straight with Morgan. But telling her the truth was one of our most intimate and memorable phone conversations. The little 8-year-old rebuked me for lying to her, and she made me promise that I would never lie to her again." Those words highlight just how emotional and complicated the family situation was from his perspective. One thing is clear, Jim isn't holding back in this tell-all book. Through its pages, he shares his side of the story, revisits old controversies, and offers details about relationships that have remained the subject of public curiosity for years. Based on public appearances and reports, he has also been seen spending time with his children in recent years, showing that family connections have continued despite everything that has happened. So, what do you think about Jim Townsend's claims and the stories revealed in Snakes in the Garden? Are you planning to read the book for yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with others, and turn on notifications so you never miss more celebrity news, drama, and headline-making stories.